There are very few television shows that can make you laugh at a football match, cry over a locker room conversation, and then make you question your entire idea of what it means to be a strong person. Ted Lasso is one of them. At first glance, it is a comedy about an American football coach who somehow ends up managing an English soccer team. But if you actually look at the 3 seasons as one complete story, something much more interesting appears. Ted Lasso was never really about football. Football was just the environment. The real story was about broken people trying to become whole again. Rebecca is dealing with betrayal. Roy is dealing with aging. Jamie is dealing with his need for approval. Nate is dealing with insecurity. Keely is trying to figure out who she is outside of relationships. And Ted is running away from himself. And that's what makes the ending of season 3 so important. Because after 3 seasons of Ted helping everybody else change, Ted finally has to make a decision about his own life. So before we jump into season 4, let's go back through the entire story and ask a bigger question: what actually happened to these characters? And what did the first 3 seasons prepare us for? Season 1. The Stranger Who Changed Everything. Let's start with the basic premise. Ted Lasso arrives at AFC Richmond completely unqualified for the job. He's an American. He has experience in American football, not English football. He doesn't understand the culture. He doesn't understand the league, and almost everyone assumes he's going to fail. But there is one person who actually wants him to fail. Rebecca Welton. Rebecca has recently divorced Rupert Mannion, the previous owner of Richmond. Rupert cheated on her, humiliated her, and took away something she deeply cared about. So Rebecca decides to take revenge. She buys the club and secretly hires Ted because she believes he will destroy Richmond. And this is the first great irony of the show. Rebecca thinks Ted is going to destroy the club. Instead, Ted starts destroying the walls that everyone has built around themselves. Ted doesn't walk into Richmond and immediately become a tactical genius. He doesn't suddenly turn everyone into amazing football players. His greatest ability is much simpler. He pays attention to people. He listens. He remembers things. He gives people dignity. And most importantly, he refuses to define people by their worst behavior. That's why characters who initially seem impossible to like slowly become more complicated. Rebecca isn't just an angry woman. Roy isn't just an aggressive veteran. Jamie isn't just an arrogant footballer. Nate isn't just a shy kid man. Ted keeps looking underneath the surface. And that becomes the philosophy of the entire show. People are usually more complicated than the version of them you see first. Richmond is finally becoming the team Ted always wanted. The players believe in each other. The club has a real identity. Rebecca has healed. Jamie has grown. Roy has found a new purpose. Nate has returned. And yet Ted is increasingly unhappy. Why? Because Richmond was never really his destination. It was his escape. Ted came to England while his personal life was falling apart. And over time, Richmond became a place where he could focus on everyone else's problems instead of his own. That's why Ted leaving is not a failure. It's actually the final step of his character development. The finale is emotional because Ted doesn't leave after losing. He leaves after succeeding. That's important. If Ted had left because Richmond failed, his departure would feel tragic. But Richmond is okay. The people are okay. The club is okay. So Ted can finally leave and go home to his son. Ted believes confidence should serve the team. Season 2 is where Ted Lasso becomes much deeper. Because now the show turns toward mental health. Ted starts having panic attacks. And suddenly, the person who has spent an entire season telling everyone else to believe becomes someone who desperately needs help believing that he himself is going to be okay. This is where Dr. Sharon enters the story. And her relationship with Ted is important because she doesn't try to fix him with positivity. Ted is the person everyone goes to when they're struggling. But Ted doesn't want anyone to know when he's struggling. That's his biggest contradiction. He knows how to take care of everyone except himself. Once we learn about his father's death and his relationship with his mother, his fear of abandonment, and the collapse of his marriage, Ted suddenly becomes much more complicated. Season 3 is basically the payoff of everything that came before it. The characters are no longer who they were in Season 1. Richmond is no longer the same club, and Ted is no longer the same man. For 3 seasons, Ted taught everyone else how to move forward. Now he finally does it himself. That's the final lesson of Ted Lasso. Sometimes loving something means knowing when to leave it. So what was Ted Lasso really about? If you reduce the entire series to football, you miss the point. If you reduce it to comedy, you miss the point. If you reduce it to Ted being a nice guy, you definitely miss the point. This show is actually about emotional growth. It asks whether people can change, and its answer is yes, but not instantly, not magically, and not because somebody else believes in you. Richmond itself is basically a metaphor for the entire series. At the beginning, the club is divided. Everyone is thinking about themselves. Everyone is carrying their own insecurity. Everyone is trying to protect themselves. But gradually, they become a team. And that's what Ted actually accomplishes. Not a perfect football system, a culture. Believe doesn't mean everything will work out. It means believe that things can become different. That's a much more mature form of optimism. And now, Season 4, and this is where things get really interesting. Because Season 3 gave Ted Lasso what looked like a perfect ending. Ted went home. Richmond survived. The characters grew. The story felt complete. So why come back? That is exactly the question Season 4 has to answer, and the answer is already visible in the premise. Ted returns to Richmond. But this time, he's not coaching the men's team. He's coaching a second division women's football team. Apple describes this as Ted's biggest challenge yet, with Ted and the team learning to leap before they look. That changes almost everything. But there's one question I think matters more than all the others. Has Ted actually stopped running away? At the end of Season 3, Ted goes back to Kansas. That's what he needed. But returning home doesn't automatically solve everything. If you watch all 3 seasons again, the journey becomes incredibly clear. Can these people learn to believe in each other? Can they admit that they're hurting? Can they let go and move forward? What happens after you've changed? Because growth isn't the end of the story. You don't become emotionally healthy once and stay that way forever. You keep learning. You keep failing. You keep changing. And maybe that's the perfect reason for Ted Lasso to return. Because the original series taught us how important it is to believe. But now, after everything these characters have been through, maybe the next lesson is something else. Take the risk. Step into the unknown. And don't wait until you're completely ready. Because sometimes, you have to leap before you look. And if there's one thing the first 3 seasons taught us, it's that the most important victories in Ted Lasso were never on the scoreboard. They were the moments when someone finally became a little more honest, a little more vulnerable, and a little more themselves. And that's exactly where Season 4 has the chance to take the story next. Believe.
Hold me close till I get out.